This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and allow it to clash into the culture that is unfolding around us. And in the end, we hope we create a moment that will make you think, entertain you, educate you, and hopefully inspire you maybe just to step out and live just a little bit differently. My name is Jeff Dixon. I'm joined by the one, the only, the Saint, Chris Whaley. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Jeff. We have an interesting show today.
We do. I think we're pouring gasoline and then throwing a match on it.
You ever been called a name?
Yes. I've called names on a regular basis.
On a regular basis?
A regular basis. Usually it comes in my email box.
I bet you there's a name you've never been called.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of names I haven't been called yet, but you know, I never like to put a limit on the possibilities because people are pretty good at that. So
yeah. Have you ever been called a fascist?
Yeah, actually I have.
Really?
I have been called a fascist.
My.
And actually that's the name of this episode, right? You
Right.
fascist.
Right.
See, some of you were insulted when you saw what the title was. We're talking about that. You know, we've all heard the term, okay, a fascist. We've heard people who have been called fascist. I am one of them. But today we're going to explore that a little bit because it is fascinating to hear that word tossed around. Now, I say fascinating, not in a good sense, but it's fascinating to me. But let's start with the basics because I'm just going to assume I know our audience is smarter than most. So I'm going to make a broad statement.
Right.
Most people that hear that term,
Right.
maybe even if they're offended by it, they don't know what fascism is.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree.
So if that's the case, then if we're going to have an honest conversation about fascism, see if you're a fascist or not, we need to kind of define what it is, right?
Yeah. So let me hear your definition
Okay.
of a big fat fascist.
Well, I have like a multiple list of definitions, but in general, if you just want to start just with this overarching breakdown, it is at the heart of it. It's a political ideology. Okay. Now, below that ideology, there are a number of categories that we start talking about when we talk about fascism. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you have like a succinct, powerful definition that's going to help me?
Well, I found it kind of interesting where I just looked up the definition of a fascist. And as I was reading this, it said fascism is a far right authoritarian political ideology that's characterized by ultra-nationalism, suppression of dissent, strict control over society and the economy. But I love that when it said far right. Fascism is a far right. I think they're trying to point to people like me when they say that, because I end up on the far right.
Well, I think that particular definition, and I think I've actually read that definition as well or heard it argued before. Obviously, the reference point for that definition is from someone on the left or the far left to make a statement that you're on the far right.
Right.
Because how often in the conversation we go, oh, they're far leftists. We don't say that. I mean, sane people don't say that, by the way. And if you do, lose that from your vocabulary. Right. Fascism, but it does have those characteristics, right? I mean, I think fascism, as it's properly defined, talks about extreme nationalism, where basically you hold on to your nationalism at the expense of other groups. So in other words, groups who are minorities, they don't fit into it. And so a fascist mindset really is a one, I don't want to say one culture, but it's really what it is. It's like one culture mindset. And if you don't fit that category, okay, then you're not in. Now that's the view a fascist holds. Think Hitler, okay? Also, another characteristic is extreme authoritarianism, I think, which is a desire for complete power, a desire to lead in every area. In other words, complete control.
Yeah.
Think of our politics in the world today. Is there a party per se that really does want complete control? And usually that authoritarianism is built around the idea of a bigger, more powerful government.
Right. Well, and along with that, and this definition had it, it emphasizes a strong, centralized government led by a single leader or party.
Yeah, because there's no wiggle room under that, right? I mean, it is one group, one individual,
Right.
holding complete control.
Right.
Another characteristic is suppression of opposition. So in other words, if you don't agree, if you have a different voice or a different perspective, for a fascist, they can't engage in a conversation or field new ideas. They basically just want to suppress that idea because that's built upon the idea that the masses aren't equipped to handle it, understand, or process that idea.
Right.
So fascism is built on the stupidity of those that aren't caught under the authority of a fascist.
Right. Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think along with that, they think that it has to do with, the military, nationalism, the curtailment of individual freedoms.
Right.
Also,
Okay.
Fascist regimes typically prioritize state power. They reject democratic principles. They suppress opposition through, here we go, propaganda, censorship, and force.
Yeah.
Now, when they say that, and of course, we know who they're talking about when they say that today.
Especially today, yeah.
Yeah. But when I look at it, I see all those things on the other side.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, and I think in fairness, they are on the other side. And yeah, the militarism, that aggressive. I mean, one of the purest forms of fascism is built upon it. One of the tenets is an aggressive, super powerful military that is interfering, and that's the key word too, interfering in foreign and domestic policy. Okay, so in other words, now whoever this leader or this group is, they're now using the military to aggressively dominate across the world, but also aggressively dominate within the confines of their own country.
And they're using that a lot today with Trump wanting to bring peace to these cities that are just ravaged by violence. And, look at Chicago, averaging about 6 to 10 people a week dying by gunshot.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting time because, again, if we go back in history to see what a fascist regime looks like,
Right.
we end up with Hitler and Nazi Germany, or Mussolini's Italy, right? And I'm not as familiar with that, but I mean, I've studied a little bit more about Hitler and the rise of Nazi Germany. And yet, in American culture, that term is thrown about all the time.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think we've kind of brushed with a broad stroke what pure fascism is.
Right.
I have no idea where our viewers have, locked into anybody they're thinking about or any party they're thinking about or anything like that. But But before you talk about it, we have to define it.
Right.
I think we have.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Come back after it's over with, and spend some time now that we've defined what it is. Let's talk about how the term is misused specifically today,
Mm-hmm.
and then how do we move forward from there, okay?
Okay.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Jeff, did you ever in your wildest imagination think that one day we would have this great TV show called The Clash, and you could actually buy T-shirts and stuff that had The Clash on? Did you ever think that
Yeah,
possible?
when I was 3 years old, I had a vision
You did?
that was going to happen one day. No, I'm just kidding. I never thought about that. So.
Hey, it's just awesome, man. I mean, of course, the tagline, "Don't tap out,"
Yeah.
on the hat.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Well,
and then
okay.
on the back of the hat, it's got The Clash. And I don't know, what you got?
Well, I'm just sitting around thinking about, how could you think about the Clash 24 hours a day and at the same time hydrate?
Oh, wow.
This cup right there, look at there.
How awesome
Now,
is that?
that's a mini tumbler right there.
Wow.
But you could get a coffee cup.
You know what? I need to get one of those to pour the coffee into it so it keeps it.
You also could get a mug though. If you're a mug guy, you can get a mug.
Yeah.
You get a big taller tumbler that you can walk around. And so when you're walking around drinking stuff with our logo on it, people say, "What is the Clash?" And they can tell you all about the TV show.
So you need to look at that little QR code down at the bottom of your screen, and you just get your camera, your phone out, you put it on camera, and you look at that, and a little thing will come up, and you touch that, it takes you right to the store. It's so easy, even I can do it.
There you go.
Hey, welcome back to The Clash. We're talking about fascism. And really what brought this about was a tragedy that happened the previous week of when we are taping this show, with the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. And of course, some of the things, Jeff, that we have heard on the news, on some of the left-leaning news shows, some of the things that have been said about Charlie Kirk have just really made me do what I'm doing now, just saying, what? I can't believe that they're saying that about a guy like him who was a godly man who loved debate.
Sure.
And, that was the title of his thing when he did these college campus things. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Well, that goes back, though, to the definition that we started with. Again, when you do research, what you find, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we made the statement. It's obviously defined by someone on the far left.
Right.
Right? So someone on the far left defines it, and so then for them, it's easy to lump him into that category.
Right.
And I got to be honest with you. The term, in my mind, is misused way too much in the American political arena today. I'm appalled at how it's used. Even yesterday, the day before we filmed, there was a moment where a U.S. Congresswoman makes this statement, and that's a paraphrase: "What can only be called fascism, and this is fact." And she went on to spout what she believed, only to be called out by another congressman saying that's not fact. And it turns into an incredibly interesting, wild shouting match where the woman got incredibly shrill and just screaming to the point where her voice was quivering. And the argument back was just a very definitive, powerful, shut her down, shut her down. I mean, and I was struck by the fact is, she said, this is fascism, that's a fact. But she was wrong.
She was.
And she got called on it,
Right.
which drove her over the edge into a screaming match. And that is American politics today. And that's where the word, I think, is so misused that we have a hard time understanding the definition anymore, which is why we took that first segment we did
Right.
and defined it clearly. I mean, we historically defined what fascism is.
Right. because it is predominantly being used by the politicians on the left.
Yeah. Well, it's overused, and I think, I mean, and I've been pondering this a lot. I think it's overused for one of two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One, because people are ignorant.
Yep.
And they don't know what it means. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think that's very common.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's on us as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have elected a battery of ignorant people to represent us.
Oh.
And I think they represent us poorly.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you use the word and misuse it, you're either ignorant,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which again doesn't give you an excuse, it's just ignorance, or it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know full well what it means,
Mm-hmm.
they're misusing it, and they're using it because they have an agenda that they want to pursue at all costs, and truth doesn't matter.
Right.
Which becomes bothersome to me as a citizen,
Mm-hmm.
because that basically, I just said, we are electing people who are either ignorant
Stupid.
or evil.
Stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, that again leads to the misuse of the term,
Mm-hmm.
because the term is explosive
Very.
and it has a powerful meaning.
And I think it's meant to be explosive.
No doubt, no
They
doubt.
use it to do exactly that. It's kind of like, when it's used of Trump. One of the things that they used it for was, back during the 2020 election, the fact that he questioned the 2020 election. And then they also used it when he made his speech. And they never quote him on that. They just say he was the one who was inciting violence when he said march peacefully and patriotically.
Mhm.
They never quote that. They never say that at all.
Sure.
Because that's what he said.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. I
No.
drifting right to Trump on those things.
Well, you can drift away, because again, that's part of the conversation. And obviously, as since he is the president right now too, I mean, anyone who opposes him, that's one of the things they lob at him. They don't call him a fascist; they call him Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
They call him Mussolini. They'll call him by a variety of names. Historically, if you understand what the word means, you can't call him that and be a sane person. Which means it goes back to what I said either. You're either ignorant or you're evil. And I would add one more category, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But based on that word, that term,
Mm-hmm.
it ceases to end constructive conversation, because it drives a deep wedge into voters, into American public. It forces people into a corner to choose sides.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you're afraid if you don't choose the right side, your
Right.
voice will be extinguished,
Right.
and people won't hear you. And so it hinders constructive conversation. If I can call you a fascist, if you can call me a fascist, then all of a sudden we really can't talk anymore. We can just yell at each other.
Yeah.
Because that's all we have left.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because why would you listen to me if you think I'm a fascist?
Right.
Right? Why would I listen to you if I really believed you were a fascist?
And what is it leading to today? What is it leading to? We had, 2 assassination attempts on President Trump, and then, Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
Yeah.
So when they use those words, they're inciting their base to violence.
Yeah.
I believe.
And again, I think while we know that the nature of politics is the nature of politics,
Right.
but somehow behind the veil of politics, there's a spiritual dynamic that's taking place.
Right.
And so those that are so quick to use that term incorrectly. Now, if you use the term correctly and you're right, that's a whole different thing. But
Right.
that's not how it's being used.
No.
So you're either evil, you're either crazy, or you're either ignorant. But no matter what, we've got to kind of get a handle on using that term, because it's not an excuse, and we have to learn to address it. And because this is that episode for us, we're going to go take another break and come back after the break and talk about how do we address it from a faith standpoint, which is really what it always comes down to, right?
Right.
So don't go anywhere. We'll come back and we'll keep asking the question, you a fascist? In just a minute. Hi, Jeff Dixon. You might recognize me from The Clash, but that's not what I want to talk to you about. I want to invite you to visit a website. It's touchandchange.net. Touchandchange.net. That is the website for the ministry of the Church at 434, where I am the pastor. Chris Whaley is one of our pastors on staff. And so while you're familiar with us, you may not be familiar with some of the resources that we have to offer that we think will help you in your journey of faith. And you can find all sorts of stuff there with brand new programming that's released every night at 7 o'clock. And you can join us for worship live each and every Sunday morning at 9 or 11:15. Or you can watch streaming reruns of those worship services. And you can go back all the way back to when I had dark hair. And so we would love for you to come and join us and be a part of the journey of faith with us at the Church at 434 at touchandchange.net. Hi, it's that time of year. We get to that time of year when fall comes and people start thinking about Halloween. I don't know what you think about Halloween. I don't know whether you like it or not, but here in Central Florida, the Church at 434 sponsors an event entitled Face the Fear. The dates you need to remember, October 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's an outdoor event. It will be an event like nothing you've ever been to before. And if you want to find out more about it, visit us online at facethefearhouse.com. That's facethefearhouse.com. Our theme this year, Gator Guardhouse. And we're going to take you out into the woods to a lost, long-forgotten prison where no one ever escaped from. And that sets the backdrop for an incredible story, a night that you will remember. And we would love for you to come and be a part of that. October 24th, 25th, 26th, facethefearhouse.com. We look forward to seeing you at Face the Fear.
Hey, welcome back to The Clash. Jeff, we have to bring in a Christian perspective on this subject that we're dealing with of fascism. And before I do, get you to get going on that, Christianity is divisive.
Yeah.
It's
Sure
divisive.
is.
It is. I mean,
Sure.
there are people who just are radically opposed to Christianity, and if you bring up Christian views or whatever, it's divisive and all. But we have to find a way to make sure that people know what we mean and what we're saying without being divisive.
Yeah.
Can you do that with fascism? Why don't you take off and just tell us the Christian?
I think he can. I mean, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're going to speak up for Jesus, if you're going to live a life of faith, you are going to offend some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for our audience to remember that if you offend someone, you're offending them because they don't know Jesus.
Right.
very, very, very rarely, and again, now Christians get offended.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you really have a heart that beats for Christ, you ought to be pretty hard to offend.
Mm-hmm.
Because Christianity, right, teaches us we need to love, we need to be humble, we need to respect each other,
Mm-hmm.
we need to build our lives on truth. And that all stands in direct contrast to fascism. So if you're a follower of God, you can't be a fascist.
Right.
And I know that sounds like an absolute, but if you buy into the tenets of fascism, then you're not a follower of God because they don't mesh.
Mm.
And I think the secret to that is going back and we go to Bible and we talk about what Jesus said and what he did and how we're taught to live. Because if I'm a follower, you're a follower, we value freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We value justice.
Right.
And we value dignity. And, I know we're an American culture, but, Christianity shapes you from the inside out. And so part of our response to that is, we have to decide to be the best followers we can be so that as we make an impact in the world, and it's not it's not little acts of kindness. I've quit using that phrase. It's little acts of impact that we have to make in the world. And that cuts across whatever culture or country you're living in. Because if I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, but I'm going to be a follower of Jesus in Iran, then I am obligated by what the Bible teaches me to operate within the laws and the rules of government in that country. And I have to figure out how my faith works there.
Mm-hmm.
and if I'm going to change it, I have to change it in a way that's going to honor God. So,
Right.
so I think in some ways in American culture, we really have abused the freedom that we have in Christ, and we've kind of Americanized Christianity to the point that we don't know how to respond real well anymore.
Mm.
But I think to stand against it, we have to, one, be good followers, and I think we have to be strong as followers, and we have to make a commitment that we just can't ignore or tolerate fascism.
Right.
I mean, the example of that is like Dietrich Bonhoeffer in Germany with Hitler, right? I mean, boldly stood against it, didn't do anything that was subversive to faith, but certainly was subversive to the cause of Hitler,
Mm-hmm.
because he was holding to a Christian set of principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for us, we've got to understand that our action plan is that we have to learn to be able to speak the truth and know the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and not be afraid.
Right.
And if we don't know the truth, it falls upon us, I think, to discover what the truth really is before we speak. Because people spout off all the time.
Oh.
They do it in social media, they do it in settings, they do it in conversations, and that's when things tend to blow up.
Oh,
And everyone's looking for a soundbite instead of change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we have to engage conversations. The Charlie Kirk approach. Prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong.
But that it's a dialogue to conversation. And you know what? When you have truth on your side, you're not afraid of a conversation.
Right.
I mean, I'm not afraid to debate anybody. And I think I can debate them with dignity and without, insulting their personhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that my ideas and my beliefs will stand against anything they have to throw. And you know what? If they are better, or they have a better set of ideas, I'm willing to hear it. You have to go a long way to convince me that what I believe isn't true.
Right.
But I'll engage in that conversation if you really want to have one.
Right.
And I think we have to not be afraid to do that. Now, again, that's hard in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, the people who are calling Christians fascist are also the ones wanting to silence them with violence.
Right. That's what I was going to ask. We've reached that point in America where it is now dangerous to say the things that we're saying, because there are people that want to silence us.
Let me take it a step further. Make a bold declarative statement. Could get us kicked off the air.
Okay.
There are no safe places in American culture anymore for the people on the right.
True statement.
So we have to decide it's okay to operate and function in a world, in a nation where there is freedom, but we no longer have those safe spaces. And I know that makes people afraid and will drive them to keep their mouths shut.
Mm-hmm.
But when God calls us, he calls us to a life of passion and purpose.
Right.
And so we have to decide it's okay and speak up for that. Because again, if change is going to happen, that's how it happens.
Yeah.
That's a kind of, that's a dog-eat downer way to end it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Jesus didn't back down from controversy.
No.
He met it head on, which is what we're supposed to do. We cannot back down from the truth, because ultimately, I believe what Jesus said, the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that this week. And above all, don't tap